Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another review for you, and today we're going to be taking a look at the new Corsair 600T. I caused a bit of a stir when I reviewed the 800D, so I was one of the few people that actually brought up the fact that it's an absolute hotbox, and the fans that come with it are just shocking. But anyway, we'll forget about that. We need to move on with a clean sheet for the 600T. I've actually been quite looking forward to this because the original sort of designs and like pictures and stuff that I've seen in the past, it actually looked like they might have started to, sort some of the problems out. So we'll blast straight in with this. It's a mid-tower case. There is an awful lot of plastic around the outside. The whole thing is pretty much encased in plastic apart from the sides. But that's, do you know what I mean? There's so many cases that are like that nowadays, you know what I mean? And the plastic is not like the plastic of old where it was all flimsy and horrible. It's quite, stern, and it really does encase, and it does the job really well. And spend a lot more time designing it. Anyway, in the front you've got 4 optical bays there, and you can pop the front part off, which has got some mesh in there. So, pardon me, I've just had a cup of tea. Like dust-proof meshing in there. It's only like a fine weave mesh, so it's not going to be a complete dust filtering system, but it's definitely better than nothing. And there you see your first glimpse of the 200mm fan in there. Now, what we'll do is I'll pop the case and we'll slide it forward, because what I want to do is talk to you about this. We've got 4 USB slots here, and you've got headphone, microphone. There's a USB 3, which we'll talk about in a bit, firewire, and then your hard drive activity light. And this dial allows you to control up to 4 fans inside the case, and the cable's already dangled down the back with extension cables. But there's no button there or anything to turn the lights on and off, which I'll show you in a minute. Now again, very similar to the front, what I need to do is grab the microphone, grab the remote, move that out a bit for you. I'll bring the case down again, and basically, there we go, you can pop the top off and pull it out. Now this is to give you access, because just here there's a lock, so you can lock the side panel. So if you're at a LAN, then you can lock the door and people can't get in your ring. Now also at the top, you can fit 2 120mm fans outside the inside of the case enclosure. This is for water cooling. Again, I want to talk to you about this in a bit. Now though, if we spin the case around, the doors have got latches on, so you can literally just pull the latches down. I'll zoom you in again. There we go. Doors have just got latches on, and then it pulls out. Now, the sides, I wouldn't say they're flimsy, because all the edges are folded. Now made very well, considering it's just a folded bit of steel. But because of the colour, and it is quite comical, I can't help but think that it's a oven tray. I keep thinking that I need to be putting my chips on it and sticking it in the oven. It's just immediately what it makes me think of. So yeah, I don't think they've coated it in Teflon. It'd be quite funny if it was. Actually be able to put your chips on it. Anyway, in the back you can see that it looks like there's loads and loads of room. But really you've got about the same normal amount of room, because the door has to go on, and you only really get the extra amount of room like in the middle. You wouldn't be able to have like loads of cases, loads of cables all hanging out here, because you wouldn't be able to get the door on properly. The door's actually got 3 little latches. So basically what you do is you move the cables out of the way, get it in the right place, and find the latch, and you can see it's just done there, and then you just close it. So it is fairly easy to be able to get the doors on and off with the cables behind, so you get a good plus point there. Round to the back, I'll zoom you in again. When you get round to the back, I've not put the I/O plate on, but this is the Rampage 3 Extreme. Now, you can see the board I've got is USB 3. and the cables, the connections are here. The case is USB 3 as well, and basically the idea is that you run the cable all out down underneath the bottom of the motherboard, and then there's a little PCI bracket that comes with the case that's put in the bottom, and you run the cable out. Now running the cable out here is brilliant if you're using add-in card for USB 3, but what you need to think about is if you're up here like I am, you need to have a case that goes into the main chamber of your case, comes in here, and then it's going to hang right the way out the back to come up to your USB 3 slot. Wouldn't it have been so much easier if they just had a little grommet here so that you could have pushed the cable through and had it gone into your I/O? Do you know what I mean? So even if you had one that was here, just so that you could get into your I/O a bit better, so you didn't have a big loop of cable hanging out the back, would have been so much simpler to have done it that way. It would have looked so much tidier, and the first case that comes out with something like that, so it actually comes out the side, it's going to get a gold star from me, because it seems such a simple fix to the problems that we've got at the moment, where we haven't got USB 3 on board, yet no one's really doing it. So having it all down here, to me it's just, that's the easy answer, and really we're not after easy fixes anymore, are we? But you can see that you've got two water cooling grommets, should you be using external water cooling. If you are using external water cooling, then I believe there is medication available, so please just go and consult your local doctor. 120mm normal exhaust out the back, but we'll talk about that again in a minute as well, because now I want to flip around, take the oven tray off, and we go inside the case. Now, hopefully you'll be able to see enough light in here, because I have tried to move it around. Maybe I'll just put a box underneath quickly so that you can see it a little bit better. Right, hard drive mounts, pretty much you just pull them out, bend them slightly, put your hard drives on, in there, slide them back in, lovely jubbly. For your USB, for your solid state drives, they've even got 2.5-inch brackets on there, so it's lovely. And then you just slide them back in, Bob's your mother's brother, job done. You can see in the roof that we've got another 200mm fan, and we've got the good old Noctua and HD14 mounted in here at the moment, but this is something that I wanted to talk to you about, because the way that the radiator has been mounted here, or the way that you could mount the radiator, I'm going to get my ruler out, because where the radiator would start is about here. So you've actually got about 50mm between where the radiator would start and the back of the case. Now the H70 radiator is 50mm thick without the fans. So what I'm trying to say is, if you had a water cooling radiator in here, A, you wouldn't be able to have a big heatsink, B, you wouldn't be able to have a push-pull on your H70, because you have to have one of the fans mounted out here, and then just the single radiator here. You wouldn't be able to put the second fan on it. Now, what I need to explain to you is 240mm radiator. For me, that would be CPU or a hot graphics card. If you had a much smaller graphics card, then you could get away with running the pair, but I wouldn't recommend it. So what I'm trying to explain is, if you had a 240mm radiator, you couldn't have a big heatsink, you couldn't run a H70, so what are you meant to use? Because your water cooling radiator, if you have a decent thickness one, you're going to have one that's going to come down probably 30, 40, maybe even 50mm from the roof, which is going to cut off where your heatsink would be. So it all starts to get very, very complicated, and although it does support water, it's not as straightforward as you'd think. For a Corsair case to struggle in having a 240mm radiator in the roof, and bearing in mind a 240mm radiator that's 50mm thick on an overclocked 480, and the card will still hit 75 to 80 degrees when on load. So, do you know what I mean? That 240, you're still going to need a massive CPU cooler anyway, and you're not going to be able to have room. So it's just, it really doesn't work. there's just not enough room there. The case needed to be a little bit taller to be able to have it all in there. Because for me, I would have a Noctua doing my CPU, and then I'd have a water block on my graphics card, and then the radiator just cooling the graphics. But with the amount of room that you've got up there, you're better off just getting a decent air heatsink. And really, it's a bit of a strange one that this really you can only ever use the H50 in the back, because there's not enough room to mount the H70 and a water cooling radiator. So it's very, very strange one from Corsair. I don't think they've really thought this out very much. I'd like to see if any other review sites actually pick up on the fact that you can't get everything in there either. Anyway, another thing, if you look at the grommets down the side here, they're actually, because I use an E80X board, it's actually overhanging. Now, a lot of people might think that this is a bad thing, but if you put your cables through first, then put your motherboard in, it'll actually make it a lot easier to keep tidy. Now, there is a second slot of grommets up here, so it's not it's not the end of the world either. As you can see, I've got the 24 pin through the outside ones, and then I've got the PCI Express through the inside ones, and there was no issues there whatsoever. But if I turn the old girl on, so to speak, that noise you can hear is the stock cooler on the 5870.